Hello, Fermented folks. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Fermented Fiction. Today, we are joined by the illustrious, the wise, the talented Mark Teppo.
Hi there.
Thank you for being here, Mark.
Absolutely.
And today, we're going to be talking about the 2007 film Sunshine, written by Danny Boyle and directed by somebody I don't remember. Who was it?
It was written by Alex Garland, directed by Danny Boyle.
Other way around.
Yeah.
This is why I'm not the one doing the victory all around. Okay, so thank you for being here with us as always. And we are going to start with our first segment, which is personal updates. How about you go first, Mark, since you're new here? Tell the audience a little bit something about you. Literally anything you say will be a new personal update because they don't know anything about you.
Oh, perfect. I got a new car and I got new glasses. And I've also relearned WordPress. And I may have had an idea for a new thing today.
Okay.
All right.
A new thing like a new book?
Sure. I mean, they're always there.
I love that you got like personal betterment with the eyes, mechanical betterment with the car.
Yeah. We can assume.
You like talent betterment with WordPress, and then some mystery. Like this was a whole story in just one
thing right there. Yes, exactly.
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. What is the make and model of your new glasses?
They are, ironically, I'm wearing my old ones right now because one of my new pairs doesn't quite work like it's supposed to. But my other new pair has sexy orange.
Okay.
I'm showing off props on a podcast. So it's like the first failure of things. Anyway, they look just like my last ones, except they're orange instead of red. How about that?
You got racing stripes now.
I got racing stripes. Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Nice. You got those on your car too? I can only assume.
No, my car is black and it's shaped like every other car in the lot, and it's driving me insane trying to find it these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, my kids are like, we're not happy about this change. And I'm like, don't even start with me. I've lost it 4 times today trying to wind around the parking lot. I don't hear about it. Yeah.
My fiance and I constantly look around and we're like, have you noticed that every new car wants to look like the Porsche 911? Like they all have that same body style.
Same, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
They're trying. They're trying. They're most certainly not pulling it off, though. What's your personal update?
Well, I just kind of dropped it a little because this is the first time listeners will be hearing.
Yeah.
I'm engaged.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I did it spontaneously like my father before me. No grandiose photographer.
And your brother.
Mountain. Oh, and my brother before me. We've all us have just been like, hey, you want to marry me? Like on a spot.
Want to do a thing? Yeah, see?
Yeah, want to do a thing. So, yeah, that's my update. It's pretty exciting. Very exciting.
That's awesome.
Now for the stress of wedding planning.
Oh, good luck with that.
Thank you.
But once you get through that part, it's all just different kinds of stress. It's going to be wonderful.
Well, good luck with that. I mean, yes, no, it's different kinds of stresses.
Chloe's great. Welcome to the family, Chloe, officially on the podcast. We're really glad to have you in the Vermeulen clan.
I don't know if she listens.
I'm sure she doesn't. My wife certainly doesn't. She listens to my voice way too much as it is. And my personal update actually goes to yours, Mark, because I got a new car too.
You did.
Yeah. And like your glasses, my car is orange because that's my favorite color.
Tell them about the tires, though.
I did.
It didn't come with tires?
It might. I wish it wouldn't have, because that would have been a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
I had to. It came with like some super oversized, like kind of lowrider tires. And I'm not nearly like cool enough to pull those off, so I just put on some normal. I had to get new rims and new tires, but now it drives great. The problem with it was, if literally more than one person rode in the car, that car would scrape on the fenders, Mark, because they were sticking out past the fenders. It was ridiculous.
Yeah,
so, yeah. But it's solved. Problem solved. Kind of like your glasses. They were orange. It didn't quite work. Now it's fixed. So I hope you have the same luck with your eyewear.
I hope I do too. Yes.
All right. Well,
All right.
thank you everybody for personal updates. Now it's time for the meat and potatoes, the protein, the center of our show, Fermented Fiction, which is
Forced enrollment.
Mark, I hope you have your dice ready and your arguing brain. I got mine. So how this works, listeners, for those who might be showing up for the first time, we both roll a dice. I see Mark just rolled his. I'll roll mine. We tell each other the number. The low number has to attack whatever movie or book we're talking about, and the high number has to defend, regardless of what we actually think about that. Then we're going to go into a segment called I Have Notes and Fermented Facts, possibly. And after that, we finally get to reveal to each other what we actually think. The movie today, as we said, 2007's Sunshine, directed by Danny Boyle. What'd you roll, Mark?
Look at me. I picked the die with Chinese numbers on it. It's a 3.
A 3?
Nice.
Oh, man.
3.
I rolled an 8. I really thought I was going to lose. Also, welcome everybody. Colin Poynton is here. He's going to do our Fermented Facts. We're just about to start the debate, Colin, so you're just in time.
What? Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, Mark, meet Colin.
Colin, how you doing? I rolled a 3.
Oh, did you?
Travis almost
Travis
always
rolled yet?
loses.
He probably
the
rolled a
dice
4.
roll.
No, I rolled an 8. I rolled an 8 this time.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. You want to bring us in, Cliff? You got to get a countdown ready.
Yeah, I'll use your phone if that's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's doing some things.
It was doing some things, but that
geez.
works. Oh, jeez. Oh,
Goes
wow.
through the timer.
We're so professional here, people.
Yeah, if you guys didn't already know that.
I also have
Are
timer
you-
ready.
Oh, perfect. Colin,
timer.
give us our timer.
Go, Colin.
And you count us in. Mark, you'll go second. I have to defend, so I'm going to kick us off, and then I'll pass the debate on to you.
Yeah. Let's
All
have
right.
a good, clean debate here.
You ready?
Forced enrollment, no shots below the belt,
All right.
unless the crowd wants it. In
I do
3,
want it.
in 2, in 1.
All right. Let's talk about Sunshine, people. This science fiction movie that I surprisingly find a lot of people have not seen, from 2007, directed by Danny Boyle, written by Alex Garland. Both heavy hitters in the sci-fi genre now. Alex Garland back then was not a well-known name, but now he's made Ex Machina, Annihilation, Men. He's got Civil War coming out this year, so this was kind of his start. And if you want to know how good this movie is, you don't really have to look any further than the cast. You got Cillian Murphy, Rose Byrne, Chris Evans, Cliff Curtis, Chipo Chan, Michelle Yeoh, Hiroki Sanada, Benedict Wong. Like, all of these are big names. They're all in one location in a tight, like, suspenseful, claustrophobic sci-fi thriller about people trying to reignite the sun. It has really good graphics for back in the 2000s. Some really tense scenes with like the solar flares hitting things and the reparations that have to happen. And the last thing I'll say to like defend this right off is it definitely used tropes from movies before it, like Alien, and that's the main one I can think of, but it also set a lot of tropes. I rewatched recently a movie called Life, and I watched this brand new movie that came out this year called ISS. And both of those movies have this like pivotal scene where the character has to like go outside and make some repair to the ship. And while they're out there, something goes wrong and they get careened off of the ship and they die. And I was like, where have I seen this before? Oh yeah, Sunshine, and it did it better. Sunshine has consistently proved to be that movie where I see tropes from it happening in later films, and I'm like, yeah, that was good, but Sunshine did it better like 12 years ago. So why am I watching this again if they're not going to pull it off in the same way that this sort of groundbreaking sci-fi film did? And as always, Danny Boyle has some great camera work. He makes some interesting choices that I think benefit the movie overall, that were reminiscent of kind of 28 Days Later. And it was cool to see that camera work in like a sci-fi setting, but that's how I'll leave it. The mic is yours, Mark.
All right, so I guess my job here is to take this thing down. Yeah, so I mean, as you said, the cast is impeccable. Danny Boyle made a comment on the commentary track about how he was excited about having Chris Evans for this film, because Evans had just been hired for the superhero film. Paused. He said, "Yeah, Fantastic Four," right? So it was. This was just so before everything sort of happened, and you're right. The cast is great. The cast works well, and Boyle talks about the pedigree, right? That he's coming after 2001. He's coming after Stalker. He's coming after Alien, and how all three of these are there's a level of self-awareness of not doing the thing that has been done right by these other people. That all said, I think he can't decide which of those films he really likes the best, because the last half hour of this film is not the same as the first hour and a half by any stretch. It's a different film. It's a completely different film, and you can't spend an hour and a half getting people into this conversation about God and space and our place in it all, and then turn it into a monster movie. Right, with the total final girl running through the ship being chased by Mark Strong done up in with lots of effects makeup, it completely comes off the rails, and you're left wondering, what the hell did I just watch? I mean, you sort of forget the first hour and a half, because you're trying to figure out, one, what happened, and two, what did I just see? Because the camera work is so weird and frenetic, and I want you to feel like you've been staring in the sun, that you don't really understand what you've seen. So yeah, there's things that he tries to do in the end that just completely take this rather interesting film and turn it into this mash of stuff. Right, that feels really unrewarding, and for all of the detail work and all the attention to the characters and so on and so forth, and the nuances that happen in the beginning, there's so much of the end is just I don't know where anybody is. I don't know what's going on. Things are left unexplained. It feels rushed. It feels a little bit like Danny Boyle left the building for a half hour and someone else came in and spliced all this together and said, "Yeah, we're done. That's a wrap. Ship it."
I think I'll disagree with you on the camera work. I think actually you did touch on something. It was intended to make you feel like you've been staring in the sun all day. And I think what Danny Boyle did very effectively was he really made you feel the type of horror those people would actually be feeling. And that's this chaotic, what the hell is going on? I have no idea. Flip of a switch type of like thrill. And they are running for their lives, and they are panicking, and they're trying to get the ship back in order. And far too often, I think, in less efficient horror films or less efficient thrillers, we see too much. We're given too much of the monster. We're given too much of the thing we're supposed to be scared of, and it takes all of that suspense out of it. And I think that his camera work and his kind of chaotic freneticness was very efficient in actually keeping us grounded in that, like, that suspense.
Yeah, but if you think about what Ridley Scott did with Alien, right? That you never can't see what's going on in Alien. And actually, I just watched it recently, and I'm now picking up a couple extra spots in the film where the alien is actually in the frame. I just haven't been paying enough attention to notice it, because I can see everything, right? And because I have that sort of ability to look around, and the whole sequence when Pinbacker comes after Cassie in the Earth room, right? And the lights go on, and I'm just like, what's going on? I have no idea what I'm looking at, and I do, because I've seen this film a dozen times already, and any other slasher flick I've seen. I know what I'm seeing. Right, I know what I'm experiencing, even though I'm not quite sure what I'm seeing. And again, which is again fine, but it's not the film we sat down with to start.
I think there is a yeah. Go ahead.
No, and I think that the tone shift is so abrupt
right? That if we had had more of that earlier, it wouldn't be such a weird switch, right? That we've been prepped for it, right? It's almost like Event Horizon, right? You remember Event Horizon where they kept splicing in those bits of things that to this day I'm still very upset about that they're seared into my brain, right? Because we were never prepared for them. We never really understood they were coming or didn't understand what they were, and then suddenly there they are. And we're like, but I was having lunch, and so I think there was a compression of things that happened in the end, which I think turned this thing on its head too much, and there wasn't enough threads getting us there. That's the hill I'm dying on right there.
All right, and I would say, I think at the offset of this, you said he had watched 2001, Alien, and
Stalker.
What was the third one? Stalker.
Solaris. Sorry, Solaris. Sorry, not Stalker.
Yeah, Solaris. And I kind of think he did a good job of kind of weaving a thread through all three of those movies he did want to pay tribute to. Like, the beginning of that movie is very much like 2001-y. You'll have to forgive me, I haven't actually seen Solaris, so I don't know. But I know the alien component does transition you into that kind of horror element at the end, because I would say the alien component is that middle part where they do find the Icarus One, and it becomes kind of very much a horror film, subtly and slowly, because you're walking through this ship that's abandoned. It's covered in what you figure out to be is ash. You get these like jump little pictures of the old crew, and your mind starts to go like, oh, this is no longer just a crew like arguing about humanity. This is now dire consequences, and there's something really wrong here. And I liked how Danny Boyle did that. I want to make one more defense. It's totally unrelated, but I'd be remiss if I didn't get it in. Chris Evans killed it. Like, as the youth say, Chris Evans in this movie, he ate, and he did very well. And I was very surprised at how efficient he was in this role.
It's time for Beer of the Week.
I cut myself off. Beer of the week.
Yeah.
All right.
Mark Teppo, do you have a beer of the week with you?
I am drinking Thorntail Hard Agave.
Okay.
Available at your grocery store or retail outlet near you. Is it
good? Tell us what it
four
tastes
flavors. This is passion fruit guava. It's not bad.
All right. That's a ringing.
They're okay. I mean, they're
Not bad.
I got another one here. I'll probably open it. So, that's fine.
All right.
Yeah.
Clayton, what are you drinking?
I'm actually not. I do have an NA beer here, but I'm going to let that be Travis's beer of the week, and then I have some A, because I kind of the last two author interviews were at like 9 a.m, so I skipped out on the A. I'm going to be drinking some Gunpowder Irish Gin, which is not a beer, but it is
about the week. Store today.
I've got some in the freezer. I should go get it.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Go get it if you would like to. I got this for
you guys are going to talk shit about my defense if I wander off to the freezer. So.
Damn it, he's on to us. Yeah. And I got this in honor of the Stonebrook series today here, Mark. It's actually from Tombstone, but it's the most Western cup we have.
Yeah, awesome.
Says I'm your Huckleberry.
Oh, there you go. Fucking Val Kilmer, man.
Oh yeah,
such a great iconic scene. He ate,
as the kids say. He ate.
He chowed, dude.
I am drinking. It is Lent. I gave up alcohol for Lent because I hate myself.
Congratulations.
And I'm drinking Blue White
for Jesus, huh?
Blue Moon non-alcoholic Belgian White. So
wow.
Yeah.
Well, good for them. I'm glad they recognize that their people do things for Lent that they need to help you out with.
Yeah. Yeah, right. It's a good NA. It honestly is. It keeps the citrus flavor of a Blue Moon and doesn't lose a lot.
I have a beer ready for this too.
All right, what do you got? Colin?
In honor of Cillian Murphy, Academy Award-winning Best Actor, I
Yes,
have
sir.
Guinness,
home
there you
steak.
go.
a Guinness
Beautiful.
draft stout.
He did. He finally got that Oscar. And so did Robert Downey Jr. I couldn't believe that was his first one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's about damn time for both of them. They've been absolutely slaying for
Right.
years and years.
For all those looking on camera and saying, wow, Travis doesn't know how to pour a beer. I have a stomach condition and need to get rid of the bubbles.
Yeah,
Okay.
asshole. Not you.
I think it's
Not you,
it's-
Mark.
I figured you were talking to your brother there. No, I think it's interesting that there's, in many ways, that Cillian Murphy's Kappa in Sunshine is sort of a first pass at playing the physicist character, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like this is Oppenheimer when he's 22, right?
Yeah.
I thought that was so funny when they said he was the ship physicist. I was like, okay, he's been training
Of course
for this
he
for a
is.
while.
He's been doing this. Yeah,
And after all of those, he turns to the Scarecrow.
yeah. Well,
He does.
Yeah,
He does.
yeah.
Well, he was so just heartbroken at what he did. He had to.
Understandable.
He did what he had to do,
But
which is a great segue into our next segment, which is I Have Notes.
you
Now, sometimes this segment is done by Jeremy, and sometimes Jeremy just doesn't show up.
Notes or
Today
facts?
is one
Which
of
one do
those
we do
times.
notes.
Notes. I think actually sometimes we
Is
do
it
do
facts?
facts first, but
We're professional.
I want to get my notes out of the way because I didn't write them down and I want to remember them.
All right.
And that was
That's
actually
fine.
my first note. So Marcus transitions in. But I thought it was awesome that Cillian Murphy was just a physicist in this movie. Didn't expect that. And it was perfect because he actually played quite a similar role even. Exactly like you said, Mark. It was like Oppie was 20 years old.
Mhm.
And
I'll argue that the similarity extends beyond that, in that they're both passive characters, right?
that's true. Very
Mhm.
much so.
They both are sort of forced into being the ones that have to make the decisions, right? They would prefer not to make the decisions or not be those guys, right? So there's again. See, it's all Alex Garland was on top of it. Well, actually, the guy who wrote the biography was. But anyway, I think that there's a lot of parallels between those two characters, which is entertaining seeing them today.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
Look at that pint glass that Colin's got. Nice shout out to local bookstores. There you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Love it.
You know this
My
bookstore as well.
religion.
I'm familiar with that one. Yeah.
Nice.
It's the best. Top 3 bookstores I've ever been to.
You can't be in Portland and not know about Powell's. So yeah.
Yeah. If there was no Pals in Portland, I probably wouldn't go.
There you go.
Probably just speed right through it.
Yeah, waste of time otherwise, which is certainly not true. But my second note, I will say, Mark, you took my exact argument that I would have used had I rolled low in this episode, and also had I been in the debate at all. But this movie, I was so not expecting it to go just completely full-born slasher, and I thought that was just absolutely bananas. And I hated it. So that's my second note.
That you hated the slasher element. All right.
I hated. I liked the movie until that point, but I was like, "What is going on?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
did somebody else write the other half of this movie, like Ant-Man? Like, what happened here?" It was just completely different. But and then to note number 3, Travis, I like how you tried to take those crazy like POV slipping bullshit camera flare things and turn them into a positive
Hey,
artistic.
maybe I thought that.
I don't think
You
you
don't
did.
know that yet.
Maybe you did. I didn't. If it were in a book, it would be a POV slip, and an editor would have cut that shit out because it was like, how does anybody see these pictures that isn't alive, and what is happening, and how come they didn't do this? Like you said, Mark, that was a great point. If they wanted to do that kind of shit, do it in the beginning of the movie. You know, like show us that I don't know, maybe your crazy physicist has been looking at pictures of the old crew, or the captain has, and that's like a thing. But it wasn't. It was just like all of a sudden, we're on the ship, and now everybody has these memories in their brain.
Well, you don't get to hear my opinion yet, so
that's true.
move on.
I'm not asking for it. Merely giving notes. Note number 4. I'm really excited to know what you actually thought about this.
Well, we can't get there yet.
I have a note. I have a note actually.
What's your
he
note,
has a
Mark?
note.
So they published a print version of the screenplay,
Oh.
which I was able to sit with while I watched the film. Almost everything is in the film. Almost everything is on the screen, except there's one scene where they changed a couple of lines of dialogue. It's the scene where they're hearing Pinbacker's transmission, right? The first time they hear it. And it ends with, in the script, it ends with, "And when I die, I'll be the message delivered to the face of God."
Okay.
In the film, it's, "All our hopes, our dreams are foolish in the face of this. We are dust, and to this dust we shall return. When he chooses for us to die, it is not our place to challenge God."
Interesting.
And I think that completely changes his character.
Yeah. Yeah.
But everything else is pretty much shot as and Boyle has said that Garland did like 30 drafts of the script. But anyway, what they published, which I assume is the final script, everything else is there except for that one sequence. They changed those lines, and I think that makes a dramatic shift to Pinbacker's character.
Yeah.
And do you feel like the character represented in the film was more represented by that line, or by the line that they changed it to?
I think it's more. I think it's more clear. Well, we're going to get into opinions here really quickly if I say it, but that was my note. I wanted to put out my note.
That's his note.
Good
Yeah,
note.
we'll
Good
stick
note.
with
That's
his
my
notes. Do you have any more notes?
No, I'm going to move on. I'm ready for Colin. I'm ready for Colin's facts.
Do you got us fermented facts?
Boy, do I have some fermented facts. Haven't done this in a month. So Sunshine, if we've already made reference to it, of Danny Boyle and Alex Garland 28 Days Later fame, had a way bigger budget because they could afford a way bigger budget. But do you think, how much did they crush their budget with the box office? Would you take a wild guess?
Oh, I
bet
this was a bomb.
34 million, but it cost them 40 million. And that's everywhere. That's worldwide in a bunch of countries. I think the US was like 144,000.
Yeah.
Hey, $6 of that was me. $6 of that was me.
Yes. All right. I rack up their DVD sales.
Must have done. And it will be smart too, because it is a cult classic. Thank you, Mark, for the suggestion. Because I'm a sci-fi nerd and I haven't watched this movie before, and I was blown away by it. And I guess maybe someone tried to bury it because of how bad the budget was. But has an all-star cast. It was kind of their first picks. Compared to 28 Days Later, it's like all of a sudden everybody knew who they were and they could choose who they wanted and go nuts with it, have a budget that they went back and forth on the whole time. I think they actually had a huge, had to make a bunch of changes because they were thinking there's no way they could do it for the budget that they had. And the crew, for instance, was multinational by intention, and
that was cool.
Alex Garland had read a bunch of NASA books and moon landing books and like tried to make it as realistic possible. And I think that really shows through in the movie. The actors as well, the suit, and a bunch of facts about the spaceship design and everything else. They had people from NASA look over every detail of the film and try and make it as realistic as possible. And they had a bunch of people got discovered for the soundtrack as well, which was
awesome.
Awesome.
That last sequence, I frequently will like grade to that last little or epic song where he's kind of starting the payload up and stuff. I love that whole piece.
Who did the score?
See.
It's John Murphy with help from Underworld.
Yes.
Oh,
Underworld band. And at the after the bomb at the box office, they decided they would never do sci-fi ever again, and then they did anyway. So that didn't last too long.
No, Darwin just like done mostly sci-fi.
All right,
and those are your facts.
Thank you, Colin, for the fermented facts. All right, Mark.
Yeah, I mean the cast is amazing. I mean, I think, and if you have the DVD or you have a disc of it, you should really watch you listen to the Danny Boyle commentary. It's amazing. He is absolutely fantastic on it. And since we'll talk about opinions now, my opinion of the film is improved greatly having listened to Boyle talk about it. Because it's more clear to me that every frame is there for a reason. And hearing his conversations about why he chose the frames he did and how he put it together, I was like, okay, so this is actually a really, really tight film. It doesn't telegraph its ending well.
Yeah. And I guess I can say that.
I can't remember. There was an article about the suit that I can't find where it was again. There's a bunch of really wacky stuff about the suit, about like how they didn't have enough versions of it, so they had to figure out a way to film it, and then like bits of it were falling apart at different times, and it was like made to be claustrophobic, to make the actors claustrophobic, and then they did, and then they like had to intervene at times. So there's a whole there's like a whole Reddit sub Easter egg trail you can fall down just learning about the suit in this film and why the shots were done that way and how it ended up that way. So it's another fun fact.
That's amazing. So I guess to elaborate, Mark, so you like the movie, that's your opinion, but like what about Boyle's commentary kind of switched your opinion on some things?
So I hadn't seen it since it came out, right? When we decided to do this film. So I was like, all right, so I had to track down a copy, which is harder than I thought. And I watched it again. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I get why I didn't like it because of that like Clay was saying, that switch at the end. But then listening to Boyle's commentary and him breaking down the character arcs, and then the sort of why this scene is here and how this character operates and sort of what goes on. There's an intentionality to all of it that I'm really impressed by. I mean, and I assume, frankly, in a lot of ways, that all directors sort of have this intentionality when they're building these scenes, and you have to make these choices. But I really had a lot more respect for the script and sort of what they did with it by realizing, every character has their own fantastic death scene and their own fantastic mini arc within the film, and how he manages to pull all those off was pretty impressive. So yeah, I think I would go back to it and continue to watch it as an exercise in craft, more than as a hey, let's watch a fun science fiction film, right? Because I would want to see this. Like, it's going back and watching the scene where Kappa and Mace and Cassie make the decision to kill Trey, right? I mean, it's Rose Byrne and Cillian Murphy and Chris Evans, and the scene works because Chris Evans has got those eyes, and Rose Byrne has got those eyes, right? And that scene works because there's just so much is being done with just them looking at each other and their reactions that it's there's not a lot of dialogue at all, but what has transpired is really, really impactful and really, really fabulous. And as a writer, I want to go back and watch those and see how they managed to do that, right? And how little you needed to do to make it work, right?
I felt the same way. Especially during that scene, I was like, oh man, like actual stakes, actual characters, actors who aren't just pretending to be a certain character that has a certain opinion. Like they have their certain idea and it fits with their character, but then they also change that opinion based on what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I thought it. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
No, I was just going to say the same thing I had said a minute ago, but with different words. So it's okay.
I think that was a phenomenal scene as well, and I love that. That was kind of like, to me, the last gasp of the film, as like a strong narrative piece, cohesively for me anyway, because I feel like that was before we knew about the killer. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we don't find out about the killer until Icarus is like, there's 5 passengers or whatever, because that's where we think, and I get it. It's like that fake out, oh, everything's going to be okay now moment that is pretty common in stories. But I don't know. Yeah. That right there, to me, the stakes were so high. The characters were finally so well defined. And that's exactly where the movie just went completely off the rails. Like, I can see what they were trying to do narratively and structurally, but I guess that's one of the big things that it actually was a big disappointment for me, because that was like the last great scene in that movie.
Right. And Boyle even mentions, right? He mentions that when they're on the spaceship and they're walking around and they radio back something to Cassian Core on the bridge, right? And we see Trey in the background. And he kind of has that look of, I'm going to go do something, and skulks off. Boyle admits, he's like, this is a red herring. We're trying to make you think that Trey is the one that disengages the ships, right? Which isn't the case. It's actually Pinbacker crossing over and doing all that stuff, which we never see, right? That's never made clear to us. And he admits that red herring may have been too much. Because what we miss is when Mace goes to do the deed and he goes to the drawer, there's 2 knives missing.
2 missing. Yep, I saw that.
And there's one lying next to Trey.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? And so we again, it's that intentionality. There's a clue that there's something going on here, because only one is lying next to Trey, which means the other knife is still missing. Right? So it's those in hindsight, like, oh, we did get clues that there was somebody else on the ship, right?
I think
but they're not there enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, and I agree with that. I definitely lied a little in my defense, because I don't like the camera work at the end. I see its point, but I really didn't like it. What I do disagree with you, though. I think the last really, really good scene is Mace's death. Mace's death is such like a perfect ending to his character, because I loved his character, this guy that will just do his duty. Like even to the point of like, he doesn't even question when there's one suit. He's like, Cap is getting in it. I don't care if I die. Like, he's the guy that needs to be saved, and everyone else can fuck off. It's so well done, his character. And how he dies doing his duty. Like, he knows he's going to die diving into those cooling tanks, and he does it anyway. And I think that's like the last excellent scene. And I definitely don't think they put enough clues to what the ending was going to be in. But I still enjoy it. And I still love... I kind of throw away a little bit of my, like, I don't know, brain, I guess, for some of the ending, and just enjoy some of the beauty in those shots, like especially the last shot. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but like him sitting with the room cut in half with the nuclear thing going on, like that is such a gorgeous, just matte like painting, and I love that, and it's always stuck in my brain. That's why I've rewatched the movie since I saw it in high school, because I'm like, oh man, I remember that really cool shot was Cillian Murphy like staring into the sun. And I think this movie has a ton of those. So overall, I always like recommend it to people, but I do usually warn them, like, the ending is weird. Like, prepare yourself. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I can't tell you more than that, other than the ending's a little strange.
Well, and you can argue that it's supposed to be strange because they're moving past the speed of light and they're being compressed by 1,000 gravities. So of course it's going to be strange.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, sure.
What do you want? Yeah, and I think and watching it carefully this second time, I think the majority of the freakish camera work, it's not entirely true, but the majority of it is supposed to be Pinbacker's POV.
Yeah.
Right. There's some points where it's clearly not Pinbacker's POV, but it's clearly meant to be his presence on the ship and his perception on the ship, because he's been staring into the sun for 6.5 years, 7 years. That's gonna be what he sees. I get it, right? But it's a stylistic choice that makes that last reel sort of hard to fathom. And I feel like because shortly after Mesa's death, there's like no dialogue for the rest of the film.
No, yeah.
Right. And with the change they made to Pinbacker's dialogue earlier on, it doesn't quite reflect entirely well in his final lines when they're on the bomb. Right. And Alex Garland mentions this in his introduction to the script, where he talks about this movie was written as an attempt to meditate between the idea of ego and God. Like, I mean, in many ways, they're going out to jumpstart God, right? And all of that, the immensity that we see. I mean, think of some of those shots on a big screen theater, right? I mean, they're just enormous. And to give us that sense of, we just can't comprehend the scale of what they're approaching and what it is. And so, Pinbacker's disintegration into madness from having done nothing but stare at that for 7 years is an interesting conversation, right? Well, especially when you've got Kappa, who's literally the dude who's gonna stick a firecracker up God's butt and light it. What does Kappa think about that? I mean, Kappa clearly is trying not to think about it, right? But that's essentially his job, is to restart the universe, right? And you go back and look at a lot of cultural. I mean, Mircea Eliade talks about this in The Myth of the Eternal Return, right? Which is the idea is that part of what that regular worship cycle is a recreation of the universe, and you're there when the universe is recreated, therefore you're part of it, right? So that is Kappa's job. He's going to be the guy who's going to build the new universe. Yeah, and that goes even to the depth of like his lines to his mom and his sister and the message home of like, he knows exactly how long it will take. Like, he's the one who puts to words like 8 minutes and you'll see like a brighter day. Like, he knows exactly the timeline for this new universe starting. Right. And in many ways, that being the last dialogue of the film is sort of, again, it's that in the beginning, right? God created the heaven and the earth. In the beginning, 8 minutes later, the sun was brighter. Right. It's that same sort of thing. And so, is there an angle of this where Pinbacker is Lucifer, Morningstar, the fallen angel, right? The one who dared to have pride in front of God, and is his attempts to stop Kappa nothing more than an attempt to not make himself meaningless? I mean, like he talks to, he's like when he chooses us to die, it's not our place to challenge him, right? So, is Pinbacker then just God trying not to be restarted? I mean, it becomes really sort of, metaphysical, religious, and philosophical, which they don't have time to do because they're doing this monster thing. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I feel like the first half of the movie sort of teases at us with these ideas a little bit, but never circles back around to it in a way that ironically doesn't circle back around to it in a way that say Nolan does with Oppenheimer, right?
Yeah. It's interesting you point that out too, because like I feel like Garland you're fleshing all this out, and I'm thinking of a later Garland project in Men, and like kind of the same thing happened. He had a lot to say.
Yeah.
And then the ending was just this like weird mess that if you think about it, you see where he was going with it. But like when I was in the theater, I have a funny story real quick. I left and I watched it by myself, went into the bathroom, and it's the first time I've ever talked to a stranger at a urinal. Because I just like, I saw the guy next to me that had watched it like in the same theater, and I had to be like, what the hell was that? Because both of us were like, I don't know what I just watched. Like,
yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, you're right. It's that last bit of Men was just that I'm just like, was this the final exam and I wasn't taking notes, and I feel like I should all come together for me in some way.
Yeah.
But I kind of wanted the pieces labeled a little better.
Mm-hmm.
That is Alex Garland for sure.
Well, yeah, and I get and I
You need to rewatch.
The medium's tough. It's tough to pull that stuff off because at a certain point you want to stop lecturing and you want to stop laying out pieces and go, okay, put them all together.
Yeah, I think so much credit is due. Like if you're like, I want to write a film where the sun is the enemy, it's like that is the most uphill battle you are ever going to make for any publisher or producer or any bullshit. And I read the back of the DVD and I was like, oh, the plot to Armageddon, we're going to blow it up with a bomb. Okay. And then you watch the first 5 minutes, not even in the movie, and the way they filmed it, I was like, holy shit, the sun is a demon sphere that's going to murder us all. And if we were half as close as these people are, our brains would melt.
Yeah, there's no sneaking up. Yeah,
there's good, and you immediately believe it.
And there's no sneaking up on the sun at night, right? There's just not going to happen.
Yeah, the sun is such a threat in every way, and somehow they pulled it off.
No, that was brilliant, and it is similar to Men. We've done an episode on Men and had the same kind of issue with it. It's like a beautiful story until it goes completely off the rails, like 5/8 of the way through. But I don't know. Yeah, I really like some of the stuff you brought up there, Mark, because I feel like there was so many deeper, more philosophical points that they were trying to make with what's his name?
Pinbacker.
First time watching. Pinbacker's character, but he just sort of slips into the narrative, and then and like you said, they're too busy doing the monster thing. Like I didn't feel that his motivations seemed whole. I'm confident they were fully justified to the writer and to the director, but they did not come across to a first time viewer, to just an audience, at least not in my opinion. I felt like I couldn't tell if he had a god complex himself or if he had come to worship the sun and felt that everybody should be sacrificed to the sun, or if he thought that like nobody should be meddling in the works of the natural universe and he was there to defend the natural universe. I like really couldn't discern what his actual motivations were. Did any of you have a similar struggle with that on your first viewing, or?
He was in the dark. He was always backlit.
Right.
I think, like, if I could just see his eyes while he's saying this,
right?
Stuff,
we could totally see his intentions, right? Yeah, we could just see his eyes. No, and I think that's in the script, he does come off more of the villain. He does come off more of acting. He's acting. I have done all this. He is more driven insane by the fact he's been driven insane by the sun, and so he is acting as the righteous arm of the sun. That is his duty, right? And he's nutso for that. But it's that one section they changed. I feel like it's backed off it enough. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's this.
I liked the Catholic reference. I was like, "Ooh, that's
I mean, it becomes more this. He's just scary. It's more he's doing this because you should not dare to do this, right? It's not our place to do this. Therefore, that's why he's stopping it. Is that we shouldn't be doing this, which essentially just translates to he's been scared shitless by the sun because it's obviously every time he looks at it, it's staring back at him, right? versus I think the way most of his other dialogue comes across is, I am the righteous fury of the sun, which that becomes trickier because then you are sort of in that standard sort of slasher, unstoppable monster matrix, right? Versus we shouldn't be doing this, therefore I'm going to stop you, is more an extended philosophical conversation that sort of is mirrored in the conversation they have about whether or not they're going to kill Trey.
Yeah.
Right. And that becomes an interesting parallel, right? What point, sure, it's easy to say, yes, we'll kill Trey because that's one and we're saving millions. Right. But then by extension, Pinbacker's argument is, who are we to make that distinction between 1 and 1 million?
It's it's a trolley problem in a very
it's the giant trolley problem, right? And so I think, and you know, I think about if Pinbacker had done more monologuing or had engaged them in more conversations during that last section, I don't know that it would have worked any better. I think we would have started laughing because Kappa's character to that point is that he doesn't want to talk about the philosophical implications of what he's doing.
Yep.
Right. And so for Pinbacker to show up and go, are you sure we should be doing this? What'll God think? And Kappa's like, I'm the physicist. I'm just here to push the button.
Yeah.
Please don't kill my friends.
No, I thought that too. I've thought that too about like even just the actions of like, there's something I didn't like about how the ending was filmed, but when I try and think of like alternative endings of maybe Pinbacker's not even a character, it's like, it wouldn't have worked. Like, I don't think I would have never believed Trey to be a person who would detach. Like he was not built up that way. That wouldn't have worked.
No,
there's no one on the ship that would have been like a fitting characterization for. And
therapist who was going mad with the sun potentially,
but he stays behind on.
But he didn't have to, because if Pinbacker wouldn't have separated the ships,
maybe, yeah, I could see that. But
I wish he would have been a character on the damn ship. I wish he would have been a character that I knew the whole story.
Yeah,
instead of one that just showed up for the last ending piece.
But again, I mean, but then you run into then you run into the problem of, oh, he's just Ash from Alien.
Oh yeah,
right. So that there's a certain level of there's a deleted scene they cut out, which is a Michelle Yeoh Cora in the oxygen room, where she's cleaning carrots and there's water coming down, and she even stands under the water and looks up at it. And Boyle's like, yeah. Everybody in the room was like, we saw that in Alien. So he's like, yeah, we cut it. It's a great scene, but it's like it's Harry Dean Stanton in Alien, and everybody knows it. So it's like we can't do too many references before people start looking for the references, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
No, and talk about one of the best twists in my opinion in sci-fi history of the Ash being an android, like being on the side of Mother the whole time. That was I rewatched that movie today, and like still that scene just gives me like goosebumps. Like, oh, I love it. But
it is a great scene. Yeah, I don't know. That was my main thing with it. He just sort of showed up. Like you said, it's two kind of different films. But it sounds like things were a lot more intentional than I maybe realized on my first viewing. So I'm gonna have to go back and watch it, because the thing is, just like with Men, I loved it until I didn't. You know, but like Men was legitimately like the first third half of Men was one of the scariest movies I've seen for a while. Like one of the most unsettling movies. That tunnel scene is fucking chilling.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And I love how he just follows her home and he's just standing out there. It was like, that's super creepy because it's like real. And this movie was the same way. Like, I mean, I was completely engrossed by the characters. I thought all the arcs were beautifully tied up, like you said, except for the last like two characters. Well, the physicist Kappa's arc is good, but I didn't really.
I don't think Cassie. I don't feel like Cassie got. I don't feel like she got a. There's some changes there. I don't feel like she was. I think she'll feel like she dies off screen. I think she does.
Yeah, she does. Yeah.
Yeah.
She didn't get a send off, but.
Yeah.
Well, and like her big stance was that she was the only one who voted to not kill, right? The one in favor of the many.
Right.
But then she is willing to, like, I don't know, she's willing to fight and kill in self-defense. I don't know, maybe you could have wrapped up her arc that way. Like, she refused to fight back. I don't know. That's just the random thing that came out of my ass there. But she felt like she didn't get a very good character arc wrap up. But I totally saw what you said about every other character. Their arcs were all super solid and really enjoyable to look back as like a bunch of little vignettes.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of that. I got a short story collection from Not a Pipe that you were in, Mark, and it was somewhat similar to that, the way that story worked, which was like every little story built on the larger story, and every character arc kind of wrapped up nicely to conclude the others, like Russian nesting dolls. It was cool.
Did you read it straight through? Did you read it straight through?
I did.
Or did you hop around? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I read it straight through, one sitting. I liked it a lot. It was good.
I like the one more writing thing to talk about, and then anyway, I love the reference at the beginning too. So they have kind of a little Catholic theology reference at the very beginning with the conversation at the dinner table about light and darkness, and the psychologist talking about how like darkness is just an absence of a thing, and the light is to let something like wash over you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, hey, that's like somebody actually studied like original sin doctrine a little, like Garland did his homework, because I hear that a lot with people saying like, oh yeah, the devil's just like, or evil is a thing, and it's like, no, that's actually not at all what like that kind of faith base that you're bringing in here believes. It's that evil is an absence and like turning away from, which again, if used properly, could have made I forget his Pinbacker's character so interesting. Like, did he turn away from the thing that he stared at? Like, in staring at it, is he actually moving away from it? But yeah, the scene where he runs into Pinbacker in the observation room, he flees by telling Icarus to shut it down, which isn't the way it is in the script. In the script, he tells Icarus to dial it up. And that stuns Pinbacker, and that's what allows him to escape. And so in the film, when it actually says shut it down, and there's that shunt to darkness, I don't quite follow that would have stunned Pinbacker as much. But in light of this conversation, I can see why they made that choice, right? Yeah. That Pinbacker is so filled with light at this point, right? That the lack of it becomes this darkness that paralyzes him. You know. Well, I think we've had a great conversation. Yeah. Thank you again.
Now we get to our very final bit, which is we have a very chaotic linking system. You've watched a couple episodes, Mark, so you may know this already, but instead of doing like a 1 through 10 stars kind of thing, we just try to inform you from each of our completely subjective opinions how many beers you should drink to enjoy this movie to the absolute fullest. So let's start with Mark Teppo. Mark, how many beers should you drink to enjoy Sunshine to the 11th power?
I'm going to say 2.5.
Okay.
I think you should have the half before you start. And then I think you should crack the first one, and then the second one when you stop realizing you know what's going on.
Okay.
Right. So by that final point, when Cap is staring at the sun and it's boiling into his face, you're through that second beer, and you're like, yes, this is awesome, and you're not really worried much about the last half hour. I think that's the way to. That's what. So I give it a 2.5 beers.
All right.
Pace.
I'm gonna
pace throughout.
I'm gonna jump off of that because I have a similar one of like, I think I'm gonna enjoy like a slow. Maybe a Guinness, maybe something like a good slow drinker throughout most of the film.
A sipper.
And then as soon as the pinbacker stuff starts happening, I'm trading beer for like a couple shots of whiskey. And I'm having those, and by the end, just indulging in the glorious light of those sun shots because
the next morning you'll think, was my vision blurry or was the screen
exactly
blurry? Right? And you're like, I think that's on me. That's on me. No, the film was great.
I agree.
Colin?
I would definitely dial up Mark's ranking and like start off with coffee, because you got to focus through the numbers and where you are and which ship is where, and then definitely hit a couple beers, and then just do a bomb. So we're dropping, whiskey into a Guinness and just going for it when we're into the end of dialogue, end of film series.
Right,
and you're going to have a great time.
Right. There's no dialogue to track. Right?
True.
Yeah. No.
That's true. That's true.
We're coasting.
Yeah.
So I would say that would be like 4, maybe 5. If you're up for it.
I think this may be the most in agreement we've ever been
On a ranking system.
but I'm right there with you, because I think, this movie, it just does such a hard turn that you really got to turn it up, so that you can fully appreciate the craziness that is the end of an Alex Garland movie. I said the same thing for men, so I agree. I really like your style there, Colin. I think honor the reignition of the sun with an Irish car bomb. Honor Cillian Murphy at the same time. Let's do that.
You can set off one of those 4th of July blazing fireworks that just and you're like, oh god. Just get that
just
going
right in front of your face.
Yeah,
I think I might do one of those flaming shots in honor of Chris Evans, who's about to light his reputation on fire in the Fantastic Four.
He sure is. He froze to death enough in that film, almost once and then fully a second time.
Yeah.
Boy, what a way to go. But yeah, that's what we'll say. We'll say roughly 2.5 to 5 beers, depending on your tolerance, with an Irish car bomb. Right when you think you need an Irish car bomb, you will know.
Yeah.
You will know. And I guess that has been it, folks. This has been Sunshine. We have been Fermented Fiction, and our wonderful guest today has been Mark Teppo. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Absolutely.
And in case you didn't see Mark's featured author interview, Mark, could you tell people where they can find you and who you are real quick?
Yeah, so I am a writer and publisher in the Pacific Northwest. You can find my fiction at, or all things about me at markteppo.com, markteppo.com. I'm also the publisher at Underland Press. You can find the things there.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us today, everybody, listeners, Mark and Colin and Travis and me, I guess. We'll see you next time. This has been Fermented Fiction. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.